Hi, I'm Janne from How to Enjoy Wine, and we're going to discuss today the best wines with salmon. Now, the thing to think about with food and wine pairing is, well, there's three factors. There's the weight, the flavour intensity, and the flavour characteristics. By characteristics, I mean things like the sweetness or the bitterness or the savoury umami-ness. And when you're talking about weight and flavour intensity, you want them balanced between the wine and the food. You don't want one to overwhelm the other. So where are we with salmon in that scale? So with weight, a white fish, for example, would be at this end of the scale, and a bit of steak would be right at this end. And with salmon, we're at the meatier end of the fish scale, but we're still down here at the bottom here. So if it's just a smoked salmon or a gravlax, so you're not really cooking it in a conventional sense, then that's going to be down here. Poaching, then you might bake it, but then if you char grill it, then you're here. But we're still at this end of the scale. So what are the good wines to have with that? So as I say, we want to balance. We don't want too heavy or intense wines. They're up there with the steaks. We want them down here. So that's where whites really come into their own. But we do have some reds in the mix as well. So now, because we're talking about pink fish, because we're talking about fish with a bit more depth and weight to it, then we're not looking at super light whites. So we'd start with something like an Albarino from Spain, an Alvarinho from Portugal, a Sauvignon Blanc. There's a Certico from Greece. They're lovely for that. Maybe a poached salmon or your smoked salmon. They're quite acidic. They balance really well. As you start getting into baked salmon and you're cooking it, you're bringing some intensity from the cooking, then you want a bit more heft to your white wines and a bit more texture. So Sauvignon Gris is a good wine to have, grape variety to have. Then you get into your Chardonnay, your Chenin, and your Viognier. And Viognier has got a lovely texture which works really well with the texture of the fish. If you're looking at the Chardonnays, you could have a Chablis, so that's unoaked, so that's down the lighter end, or you can go for an oak, and that takes you up into that more intensely cooked, more intense flavours. That also takes you to where your red wines come into the mix, and what you want is a lighter fruity red, not so tannic, and that's where Pinot Noir comes into its own, a Valpolicella Classico comes into its own, and this is a Cabernet Franc, which also works extremely well. Now, if you have a sauce with it, say you have a tomato sauce with it, then that's where red comes into play as well. And of course, Italians, tomato sauces, we look at an Italian wine, things like a Valpolicella Classico would work extremely well with that. So what are my top 6 wines to have with salmon? Well, if you want to know that, you can check out my separate video telling you exactly that. And if you want to read more about wine, all things wine, food and wine pairing, then check out howtoenjoywine.com.